Hello, my name is Anna and I am a pediatric medical social worker working at a children's hospital. I made this video walking through my work week, looking at what I do in every single day, an in-depth look into the life of a pediatric social worker. I get lots of questions lots of times about what do you actually do in a day, what does a day look like, what does the job entail, and this video gives a pretty good picture into that. So before we get into the week, please make sure to subscribe so you can stick around for more videos. I post every single week. But once you've done that, let's get into the week. On Monday morning, I hardly ever know what I'm walking into. I always head in and the first thing I do will be to log into Epic and update my Epic list. Lots of times there will be people that discharged over the weekend. Sometimes I'm expecting them to have, sometimes it's a total shock to me. And often there are lots of people that have come in over the weekend too. Once I get my patient list straight, I will review charts to see what happened in the 2 days that I've been gone. It's wild how some weekends it'll be like I never left, like not too much went on, and some weekends it feels as though my entire caseload has switched. I did have a few tasks carry over from last week that I knew I could get done early in the morning, so I prepared and submitted an application for Social Security disability income on behalf of one of the families that I work with, and then I also typed up and entered an entire biopsychosocial assessment. We do these on more long-term patients to identify any psychosocial factors that might affect a patient's care proactively. I then attended our ICU rounds. We have these rounds daily because in an ICU, intensive care unit, things can change very quickly. These rounds often give me a good idea of what's going on with my patients, what has changed, and also can give me an idea of who I need to see that day. After rounds, I touched base with some of my social work coworkers to discuss any upcoming potential barriers to discharge for families. One thing about social workers is that we are going to be proactive. Always try to identify barriers before it's the day of when it's crucially important. I spent the rest of the day circling around the unit, getting to know my new families, checking in on the families that I already knew, and documenting each interaction that I had. And that was the end of my Monday. On Tuesday, I headed in, and lots of times I try to take it slow in the morning, kind of do my little Epic refresh, review charts, sit down for a while, like I did on Monday, and sometimes that option is just ripped out from under me. I got consulted bright and early for transportation for a mom who was trying to get to the hospital to pick up her kid to get discharged. The kid was no longer ready to get discharged today, and so I coordinated with the mom to cancel the transportation resource that she was using for that day and ensure there was good communication with mom over the telephone about why the change was happening. I also got consulted bright and early for another transportation issue for a parent who was trying to get to the hospital because their kid was going to be going to surgery the next day. Transportation resources are somewhat limited, but what is nice is that kids that qualify for Medicaid in Georgia also qualify to get free transportation rides with medical necessity, which includes parents coming for ICU visitation while the kid is in the hospital. My job is a bit hybrid in that sometimes I receive social work consults, social work orders to see families that may make me aware of issues that I didn't know occurred, but also on my floor, every family gets a social worker, so I'll introduce myself to a family even if I haven't gotten consulted for them, and can be a resource that way too. This was a consult heavy day for me though. I had another order that was to help a family get nestled into resources in this area due to having a medically high-risk kid and having recently relocated from out of the country. So a lot of this is just talking and getting to know the family, understanding what they've already done for their child and what they have questions about, since obviously things here work differently than where they moved from. I also spent time touching base with several of my long-term families who maybe don't have as many pressing needs but still have been in the hospital for a long time, and so I sit and just provide a supportive presence and provide encouragement as a familiar face while they continue with their hospitalization. It is nice in those moments that even though I'm working, I am just sitting and providing support, so it's not fast-paced or fast-moving in those times, even though I am actively working for pretty much the whole day. Figured today was more of a face-to-face update than a voiceover update, but I started my day like normal. Did my individual supervision this morning for my LCSW hours. It's an hour or so in the morning, and then I attended rounds like usual for our ICU just to get updates on patients and families and what's up. And then I honestly had a super slow morning and early afternoon today. I did a couple laps around the unit and around the floor, but honestly I had a lot of people discharging today that didn't necessarily need me, didn't really have any discharge needs, which is great, love that. It's always good seeing kids go home. And then in the afternoon, I very quickly and unknowingly was in a trauma situation where I had to sit with parents while they learned that their baby had died. It's It's not too often that I'm in situations like that, and I mean, the situation is not about me and about my feelings, but obviously just holding space for people and being as supportive as a presence as you can in that time. I wouldn't say it's hard, because I feel like in the moment of just being able to hold space and being able to help make the worst moment of people's life just like that much smoother to go through. And it can also be, I mean, you just wish that that would never happen to any child in any family. So I spent hours of my afternoon unexpectedly focusing on that baby and being the presence that was needed, and then allowing family to be with themselves and be with their child. So I just didn't want to do a voiceover update for today. There is 100% a healthy way to hold space and to recognize the passing of a child. That being said, I'm obviously processing and will be okay, and will continue to hold family and baby in my heart probably forever. So, quick little update for Wednesday. That was a very big day. See you tomorrow. On Thursday, as soon as I arrived in the morning, I made sure to catch up with some staff and check in about the day prior. Supporting each other is such an important part of working in any kind of hospital, but especially a children's hospital where you see really hard things and you witness really sad things. After checking in with and supporting staff, I attended the acute care unit rounds, which only happened once a week because changes are slower moving in the acute care versus in the intensive care. But Thursday is a rounds heavy day because we go straight from the acute care rounds right into our intensive care rounds. In these rounds, I learned about some families that were totally new to the hospital, arrived as a surprise with their fresh baby child. And so after rounds, I made sure to go meet the parent and give just a brief orientation to the hospital, figure out if they had any questions, figure out if they needed help figuring out how things work at a hospital. I think working in a hospital, lots of times we can take for granted the fact that now my everyday and what feels so normal to me is so brand new and intimidating and confusing for people who don't live in it every day, especially when families can be far from home, and especially when families are not at all expecting to have to show up to the children's hospital. Then I spent time catching up on some notes, catching up on some documentation that I hadn't yet done, and I did several circles around the unit just to see which parents were there and see who I could catch. Towards the end of the afternoon, I had to serve as the hospital's mandated reporter and made a report to child protection due to an incident that had led to a child's hospitalization on my floor. Child protection is a big part of working in children's hospitals. As pediatric medical social workers, you see safety concerns, you see abuse, you see neglect, and you report them. On Friday, I had a big coordination day. Coordinated with multiple hospital specialties who would all be attending an upcoming family meeting. I've mentioned these family meetings on my channel before, but in my role, I kind of play as a party planner for family meetings between ICU doctors and ICU families to ensure that there is clear communication, to ensure that families have time to ask questions and to understand their child's plan of care on a deep level and a set aside time that's totally dedicated to them. So they can be very beneficial family meetings and very great space for families to have as they understand what's happening with their child. That being said, being the party planner can get kind of complex sometimes as everyone has different schedules, and when one child is followed by lots of specialties, it's important to have them all there, but it can also be a lot of people to reach out to, talk to, send email invites to, confirm with, coordinate with. It is like party planning. And then I also coordinated with child life staff. We have certified child life specialists that work on our floor and do absolutely incredible work for our patients and families. But on this specific day, I coordinated with our child life staff because in conversation, supporting parents, it came up that they felt very nervous and didn't know how to talk to their first child about new baby's heart condition that led to new baby being in the children's hospital for an indefinite amount of time. And so the child life specialist was able to meet with family and answer their questions about how to answer the questions that their sibling will have, how to explain complex medical conditions to 4-year-olds, and also was able to provide some resources to empower family as they had the discussion with the sibling. I try to wrap everything up on Fridays and not have too much carryover into a new week. Sometimes that is totally out of my control, which is okay. But thankfully this Friday was one where I kind of got to finish by just continuing circling around the floor, seeing what parents were there, what parents I could catch, and also just being around if any need came up, which it did not. So I finished this Friday with all of my documentation complete and another good week of social working done. So that is it, an entire work week in my life as a pediatric medical social worker. What questions do you still have? Leave them in the comments so I can definitely make videos in the future addressing everything else you're wondering, as well as making videos in the future, giving more in-depth looks into work weeks. Every week looks a little bit different in social work. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you next time.